Hi, everyone, and welcome to Meaningful by Typeform. My name is Vakis. I am part of the Typeform crew, and I'm very excited among the rest of Typeform to host you today. We're going to be spending, for the ones who are tuning in early, about 8 hours together. So it's going to be a long day, and we're going to hear from a bunch of really interesting speakers. First off, I'd like to introduce Joaquim Lecha, who's the CEO of Typeform.
Thank you, Vakis. Bon dia, buenos dias. Welcome, everybody. I am so very happy to be introducing this first and therefore very, very special event, meaningful event by Typeform. So I'll share presentation with you. Meaningful is a very important word. It's becoming a very, very important word for us here at Typeform. And I want to introduce this world of meaningful conversations to you today. After me, there's going to be incredible number of speakers, some very good friends of Typeform and also some Typeformers, talking about meaningful, talking about conversations. And in a way, it's our attempt to start co-creating with you, asking a lot of questions, getting some initial answers, and I hope you will enjoy it a lot. I hope you will learn and also contribute to it. A while ago, David and Robert had their own digital marketing agency, and a customer came and asked them, can you actually design an online form for us? We are going to open a showroom. There's going to be people visiting the showroom, and we would like to collect their contact information, their name, their surname, email or telephone. So David and Robert started taking a look at what was available out there. And what they found out is that what was available was the lifeless paper forms, but in a digital way. So basically, you could go on a screen, and instead of, let's say, pen and paper, you would use your mouse or your keyboard. But it kind of felt the same. Nothing out there seemed good enough to actually incentivize these people who were going to provide valuable information. I mean, in the end, their names, their surnames, their identities, and their contact information. So as good entrepreneurs, they thought there must be a better way. And that first conversation with a customer actually had a consequence. The consequence was that they created conversational forms. Why? Well, basically, because they started thinking, how do people introduce to each other? How do we humans talk to each other? We typically say, hello, good morning, how are you? What's your name? My name is, and so on and so forth. So they thought, why shouldn't these online forms, these interactions online that are asking for your name and your contact information, why shouldn't they be not like, let's say, a human-like type of conversation? And it was through that very much empathy for the respondent, thinking about the respondent first and how that experience would be a much better experience for the respondent, that they created conversational forms. I have been the CEO for the last 2 years. It's been an amazing experience, and it continues to be an amazing experience. And I have had the opportunity to talk to David and Robert many, many times. And one of the key questions I always had in my mind, them being the founders and me being the CEO only, was why? What drives you in creating Typeform the product? Why did you create Typeform the product? And also, more recently, the new product, Video Ask. Check it out. It's absolutely amazing product. Why do you want to create Video Ask? What's the purpose of it? And every time we talk about that, the main answer is connection. I want to bring people closer together. It might be an online interaction. We might not be physically co-located, face to face, but is there a way in this online world to actually bring people together and create that connection? And then I also asked them why. Why is this important to create that connection? We live in a world that is becoming more and more online. I mean, and even now with COVID, you can see it. You are probably, most of you working from home. So you're not even having those face-to-face interactions with your colleagues, your friends, your peers in the office. And you are doing more and more of your shopping online, more and more of your interactions generally online. But it's true that when you connect, what we feel is that there is a feeling of, I would say, frictionless. So you start trusting. And that's where we are headed. We believe that a world of better connections, a world where we can actually build and develop more personal relationships online, is a better world. It's a more frictionless world. It's a world where we can be more patient, more empathetic, and make it better for everybody. And we as Typeform, how can we actually help create this world? We believe that because we are in this world of interacting online, how we can help is everybody from the freelancer to the big company, everybody to have meaningful conversations at scale. We call them brands. We call you all brands, basically, because maybe it's a small company, but you have your brand. Maybe it's a freelancer, you have your personal brand. Maybe it's a very large company, you still have a brand. And that brand is who you are. It's basically what differentiates you. It's also an element that connects you. And it connects you through these meaningful conversations, always asynchronous, always online, and always at scale. What is, though, a meaningful conversation? For us, there's 4 big elements. It has to be beautiful. It has to really create that first great experience. And it has to help you connect and express yourself, be your authentic yourself. Beautiful is not only visual, it's also the experience itself, right? It has to be personal. So as you connect with people, as you have more and more interactions with people, you are learning things, and you can use this learning to make the next interaction a more personal interaction. It can be more and more relevant as well, because you learn things, you know what people like, what's their experiences, what's their behaviors, what's their expectations, and you can make that next interaction even more relevant. And it can also be, it needs to be contextual. So depending on the time zone, depending on the device, all these things together will make a meaningful conversation, will make the very best possible online interaction. Still, you could think, why is this important for me? Why does Typeform want to help me with this? We've been taking a look at the bigger trends for the next few years, and there's some changes, some new expectations around customer technology and market structure that support these ideas that we have. For once, the customer is having higher expectations. The customer wants more personalization. The customer wants a better experience. The customer honestly wants to feel valued for who she is, for her identity, for her value to the companies. And also the customer wants privacy, wants to be respected for her data and everything that the customer is sharing with us, the companies. Technology is enabling more and more things like hyper-automation, multi-experiences, multi-touch point. We can actually interact with a customer online in more and more places. And if it's not a customer, it might be an employee. And now these interactions will happen more and more in a remote setting. So there's a number of very relevant trends that point to a specific direction. And there's also some of our problems, and we want to help provide solutions to these problems. The competition, we all face competition. Back in 2012, when Typeform was founded, in the marketing tech space, there were 150 companies. Around mid-year 2020, there were more than 8,500. So everybody, we as well, need to stand out. We need to be authentic and express ourselves the way we are, because that's the way to connect really with our audiences. Also, to stay ahead of the competition, we really need to know what people really want. And to get that valuable information, truthful and in sufficient quantity, we need to actually have those conversations, build that trust, build that stronger connection, so that eventually we can talk very openly, very transparently, because we trust each other. And of course, we cannot be everywhere. I mean, it's impossible. That's not scalable. Talking to people face to face, one-on-one, it's the very best. But is that possible? Can we do that with everybody and as regular, as frequent as we would like to? So we believe this is not possible. And what we want to do is we want to help you have not one-to-many conversations, but many one-to-one conversations. Finally, we are all super busy. We all need to do a lot every day at work. We have to achieve more with less. And also our customers are, busy as well. They have their lives. So we have to use their time in a very, very efficient way. Some answers, some thoughts, but still a lot of questions. If we want to create meaningful conversations, we have to be a meaningful company. And that starts with us. So how do we create meaningful conversations within Typeform? So with our peers, colleagues, and friends, Typeformers. What kind of meaningful conversations do we have with our customers? And what about our partners, how do we establish meaningful conversations with our partners? By being the meaningful company first, then, and by learning in doing that, we can definitely start helping others as well. And this is a co-creation process. This is something that through our meaningful conversations with our customers, we can understand and we can try to help them build these meaningful conversations with their customers, with their employees, with their partners, and with their other stakeholders. Together and spreading this, we can have lots of meaningful conversations that lead to a world of more personal business relationships, a world where trust and connection is built, a world of empathy. So that's a brief introduction. A lot more conversations will continue throughout the day. Please enjoy them. And I'm happy also to start answering questions if there are some.
Thank you, Kim. Just a brief housekeeping. If people have any questions for Kim, feel free to write them in the chat or in the QA on the right side of the screen. This was very interesting. I think there's probably a lot of people out there, and I don't think that we internally have the answer to this question, but a lot are probably thinking meaningful. What does that really mean in a conversational context? So could you provide a little more light in terms of like how you could create a meaningful experience with your customers in this environment?
Meaningful for something that has meaning, and therefore is something that I would value, that has a purpose, that is relevant. So in that sense, I would go back to the first pillar, that empathy for the respondent, and always thinking about that respondent first. How can we interact with that respondent in a way that it has a purpose for that person, for that individual, And that is 1 in 10,000 maybe. That is one person that, let's say, got to a form in a website or a pop-up, a quiz in a pop-up, or by email, embedded in an email. It's 1 in 10,000, but how can we make that interaction for that specific person relevant for that person, personal for that person, so that it has meaning for that person? I think that when we think about this, we are expressing the maximum amount of respect for that person. And we are saying we value this. We don't want to talk to you just to extract something out of you. And we want to talk to you because you are important to us. And probably we want to be more and more important to you as well. So sometimes, especially at the early stages of a relationship, you might want to be important to that person. That person doesn't know that she can be important to you. So you have to think about that. And I think meaningful in the end is when you really, really think about this and make it, have a purpose, have a meaning, have value for that person.
Thank you so much. I completely agree. I think this is why we have this event, right? We want to connect and create a community with our customers because they often show us new and unique ways of interacting with their customers, which helps make all interactions a lot more meaningful. We have a question from Hasida K, who says, thank you. I'm also wondering how one would scale meaningfulness, so to speak, particularly considering how many people or how many marketing folks or people marketing folks need to account for? So usually businesses are run at scale. How do you do this?
At scale, meaningful at scale. That's the challenge, because we cannot be one-to-one, face-to-face with everybody. So I believe we have to leverage on the power of technologies. There is always a human design behind this. So technologies will allow us to do more or less. Technologies will be used for better and worse reasons. So there is always this first element of human-driven design. What am I going to use the technology for? And in that sense, when we approach that, let's say, at-scale interaction, we have to design it in a way that, again, it's the same principles. It has to be personal. It has to be relevant. It has to be beautiful. It has to be contextualized. And technology can allow us to do that. So imagine that you are an e-commerce selling, let's say, pet products. And I get there to the webpage, and there is a pop-up that can be triggered after some time. So they let me see what's in the store, but then there is a pop-up saying, hey, can we help you? Yes. What's your name? Kim. And do you have a pet? Yes. Is it a dog? Is it a cat? Other? A dog. So that company, that brand is already collecting some information about me and about other 10,000 people that also got to that same webpage, right? In the next interaction, maybe it's by email or maybe it's in another way, I would get a personalized email saying, hello, Kim, we thank you so much for your time in our website. We know you love dogs. Here's something for you. Maybe, I don't know, some nice photos of dogs or something, that connects me with that company. And in that sense, they could also say, look, we know you like dogs. Everything around this conversation will be about dogs. We want to know, maybe the breed you have and so on and so forth. What kind of, how can we support you more? Let's say, I don't know, training sessions, whatever. And then maybe they would offer me premium dog food at a 30% discount. So all of that, let's say for me, is very personalized and very relevant. But if I had answered, maybe I have cats and I like cats, maybe that conversation would have been with, like cat food and maybe talking about cats as, maybe joining a community of cat owners and sharing photos, whatever, So in that sense, that's where you have to have that empathy for the respondent, put yourself in the shoes of that respondent, knowing and understanding that there are many respondents in different segments, and then you have to connect to each of these segments in a different way.
That's really interesting. We've got another question from Angela Guedes. Can you tell us of a recent interaction you had with a customer, vendor, or employee that was meaningful for you?
Yes. It is a great part of my job to a beautiful one, a really one that I love to talk to my colleagues, my Typeformer colleagues, and also to customers. And everything starts by asking questions and listening to their answers. Only by trying to understand their context, their situation as a customer, as an employee of this or that department, then you can really start trying to help. So in that sense, what I would emphasize a lot, especially at the beginning, is to ask questions, but with a clear intention of listening to the answer, because that will start creating a certain profile of that customer. That customer maybe enjoys this so much for these reasons, but has those problems as well. And to this extent, we can help, but to that extent, we're not helping. And that needs to go back, let's say, to product design and engineering and find solutions to that customer. And the same is with employees. As a CEO of the company, I see myself as an enabler of the other 300 super highly talented and smart people working at Typeform, more in the future as we grow. But of course, we have to create that, let's say, environment where everybody can thrive. But so that to understand what is that, we have to ask a lot of questions and at the same time carefully listen. And again, some of segmenting these departments, these swarms, these projects, and then trying to bring that solution back to the Typeformer or the employee or the customer, for instance.
You raise a really interesting point. Also something a Harmony Berry highlights. She mentions that I find meaningful as the desire to find out more instead of listening just to respond. What's your thoughts on that comment?
It's true. I think that a lot of times we feel compelled to a quick answer. And there can be different reasons for this. Maybe we think they are asking or they are saying something, so let's react to that. Or if I don't give an answer, maybe I will look worse about it. Maybe because I don't know enough or something like that. But the beauty maybe of these asynchronous conversations and asynchronous meaningful conversations is that we can take in everything that comes. Really think about this, get the insights, and think how can we use that new information in a way that is going to be, let's say, problem solving or a solution or for those customers that we care so much for. So a lot of listening and probably not so much quick to answer. But in an asynchronous communication, this is much easier, I guess.
I'd like to think so. And I do think that there's a lot behind listening. I think why we're here today, to listen to our customers and try to figure out how we can move towards a new world. We've got a question from Neha Patil, who asks, how has your personal experience been with adding meaningful conversations with your customers?
Very positive, Neha. So in any of these conversations, imagine you go there without any prior knowledge. Imagine you go there without having done any homework about that customer. How long has the customer been a customer? Have they contacted us for some reason? What has been these reasons? What use case is the customer preferred use case, or are they using more than one use case? How are they doing compared to other customers in terms of feature functionality and so on? Because all of that kind of drives the conversation in a way, because I can make that conversation more personal, and I know how long have they been customers and who they are and so on. And of course, I don't know everything. That's why we are having a conversation. So I can answer a lot of questions, but I can also make new questions. And I can make it also very relevant. So sometimes maybe there is a problem and we know that the solution is on its way. So I can already inform the customer. Maybe I see that they are struggling with the feature. Other customers are using it in a different way. I can propose a solution. And in a way help, let's say, progress that knowledge of the tool, let's say the education on the platform. So in that sense, again, I would go back to the same things. Has this conversation been a good beautiful experience? Has it been personal for the customer? Has it been relevant for the customer? And has it been also contextualized? So is it in the proper time, in the proper setting? When I go to San Francisco, I always like to meet customers, invite them to a coffee. I try to make it, for instance, close to their office so they don't have to spend a lot of time to commute. I try to make it in that sense more contextualized to where they are.
Thank you, Kim. We are unfortunately at time. We do have a couple of other questions, but for now, we will move on to the next session. Thank you so much for taking your time to chat with us today.
On the contrary, I'm here for everybody, and please enjoy the day. It's going to be a great day.
Thank you so much, Kim. For the rest of you, please stay tuned. We will be right back with a professor and scientist in social interaction, Liz Stocco. So stay tuned.